Welcome back to Humble Recaps. I hope you have a pillow and a blanket on the hand, because this video is gonna make you want to take a nap. Today we'll be recapping the 2017 crime and mystery film called Wind River, which was inspired by actual events. There are some spoilers ahead. Let's jump right in without any further ado. The movie opens up with a sad voiceover of a young girl reading a poem and portraying a perfect world with beautiful trees and meadows, the exact opposite of what we see on screen. A frigid night in the isolated wilderness of Wyoming, not far from the Wind River Indian Reservation, where a Native American girl can be seen sobbing and running barefoot through the snow. The movie then cuts to the next day, and we get to know a quiet man named Cory Lambert, an exiled non-local hunter who is shooting a wolf while fully camouflaged in white. Cory kills wild creatures for the Fish and Wildlife Department. He pays a visit to his ex-wife in Lander to pick up his son Casey. The woman is Native and they appear to be on good terms, but both show signs of being overly protective of their son. Cory drives Casey to the Indian reservation so he can stay with his maternal grandparents while his mother is away. Casey's grandpa tells Cory about a predator in the area that has recently killed one of his steers. Simply by looking at the tracks, Cory determines that this was done by a lion mother and her two cubs. This tells us that he's pretty good at analyzing the tracks. While looking for lions, a trail of footprints and blood on the snow leads him to a dead body who has a wound on her forehead and feet that are frostbitten, which turns out to be the young lady from the beginning of the film. Cory reports the crime to the reservation tribal police right away, and they subsequently notify the FBI. Cory waits for the FBI along with Ben, the police chief who has only 6 officers under his command for the whole reservation. Agent Jane Banner shows up in the middle of a snowstorm. She looks a little too sissy for this environment and is definitely going to need more layers to survive. So Casey's grandma provides her with some of her late granddaughter's warm clothing. Now we know Cory had a daughter around the same age as the dead girl. They use snowmobiles to get to the spot where the body was discovered. Cory assures them that the body belongs to an 18-year-old girl named Natalie Hansen. After examining the body and finding blood on the crotch, Jane suspects that there has been a rape. She asks Cory about the nearest place in the area that Natalie could be running from, to which he responds by mentioning a crack house and also a drilling rig. He then recreates Natalie's death by examining the footprints. The greater depth in the front of the footprints indicates that she was definitely running away. He further says that the -20-degree air in the night caused her lungs to burst, making her collapse to the ground and cough up blood, but she kept running until her last breath. The agent finds everything to make sense, and after noticing Cory's skills she asks him to help with the investigation. Once back in Lambert, they go to the medical examiner's office, where they are given the medical confirmation of Cory's statements. The medical examiner also notes that Natalie has been sexually assaulted by an undetermined number of people. Jane feels obligated to solve the crime. However, the death is not classified as a homicide and she can't have an FBI team investigate it. She might even be summoned back because it falls outside of the FBI's jurisdiction. Ben and Cory accompany Jane to Natalie's parents Martin and Annie. Here we learn that Natalie had a boyfriend and her dad didn't even know his name. Jane is irritated by the father's irresponsibility toward his daughter and she blames Martin for it, which makes the grieving man enraged. Meeting the mother is also pointless. She is so broken down that she's wounding herself. On the other hand, Cory turns out to be one of Martin's closest friends and tries to share his experiences about his daughter's death with him, helping him deal with the trauma he's going through by accepting it and hugging its pain. Knowing that Cory is involved in the investigation, Martin lights a cigarette and asks his friend for revenge, even though Cory's motive seems to be the same. In search of leads, Cory, Jane, and Ben go to the nearest house to the crime scene, the dilapidated house of Sam Littlefeather, a drug addict whose house serves as a hideout.
Chief, what's up, bro?
Sam immediately fogs up Jane and Ben, causing them to collapse in a fit of coughing. 2 other junkies try to escape through the back door, but are met with Cory's shovel strike and knocked to the ground. Jane regains her breath and follows Sam around the house with blurry vision. Sam suddenly appears and starts shooting Jane, missing, while she manages to hit him several times and kill him instantly. Later, it's revealed that one of the men in the house was Natalie's addicted brother Chip Henson. He can't hold back his tears as he hears the bad news about his sister. However, his ambiguous remarks help Jane figure out that Natalie's boyfriend was a white non-local. On the other hand, Cory notices snowmobile trails leading up the hill from the house. Since Natalie's body was discovered beyond that hill, he decides to follow the trails with Jane. As they climb the hill, they come across another partially submerged body in the snow, this time a naked man who had been partially eaten by hawks. Back at the crack house, the boys seem unwilling to give up any information, preferring to be in prison rather than stay on the reservation. but only until Cory decides to speak with Natalie's brother, whom he has known since his childhood. Chip blames the harsh environment for what happened to him and his sister, while the latter disagrees, explaining that unlike most of the locals he had the option of leaving for a better life by enrolling in college or the army. When Chip blames Cory for failing to protect his own daughter in return, the conversation turns physical and he gets beaten up by the latter. At last, Chip reveals the identity of Natalie's boyfriend, Matt, a security guard at one of the drill sites who was about the same age as Cory. Conveying these to Ben, Cory is asked to accompany them to one of the drill sites the following day. He responds,
"We don't catch wolves looking where they might be. Look where they've been."
This indicates he has different plans. Later, Jane stops by Cory's and informs him of the dead body's identity, Matt Rayburn, who was a drill site security guard. "I don't think I need to tell you that this proves that the body belongs to Natalie's boyfriend, whose name was mentioned earlier by Chip, so I won't." Jane wants to know why Cory is helping her, and she begins to figure it out after seeing pictures of his daughter. Here Cory begins narrating the heartbreaking story of his daughter Emily. Something similar to Natalie happened to her 3 years ago when she was only 16. Cory, who was a salesman at the time, wanted to spend a night alone with his wife in a hotel, but soon they were informed that Emily had gone missing by Natalie, who was her best friend. Cory wraps up the story by revealing that her daughter was found mutilated by wolves. He's been trying for 3 years to suppress his emotions, but he finally gives up and breaks down. Now we know the reasoning behind his divorce. Most likely his relationship after the incident was nothing more than a trigger. The incident had also motivated him to become a hunter, possibly to hunt the wild animals that feasted on his daughter, or maybe to hunt her probable murderers. Jane excuses herself to the bathroom, stunned by the terrible events taking place in this area. Later on, she comes across one of Emily's poems, demonstrating she was a gifted writer. It becomes clear that the voiceover from the beginning of the film was actually Emily reading her poem. The following day, Cory returns to the hill to further investigate Matt's murder, while Jane and Ben sled all the way to the oil drilling camp accompanied by 4 deputies. The head of the security guards greets them. When asked about Matt's whereabouts, he says he hoped they would have the answer, because Matt has been missing ever since a fight with his girlfriend a few days ago. Meanwhile, Jane notices bruises on his face, as well as on the faces of the other personnel who arrive shortly after. Despite their explanation that the injuries were caused by hitting trees as they were sledding around the territory, Jane's suspicions remain unresolved. On the way to Matt's trailer, Jane pulls a deception technique against the guards. In order to see how they react, she says Natalie is still alive and has reported her boyfriend missing. The lead security guard is surprised to hear that, explaining it's not possible since he heard they found her body on the radio. Jane becomes more suspicious and responds that the identity of the body was never mentioned on the radio. Meanwhile, one of the deputies notices that the guards are flanking them. He begins to panic and a standoff ensues as everyone draws their weapons. Due to Jane's higher FBI rank than the other officers, she handles the situation and brings everyone back to their senses. Jane walks to the trailer and begins knocking on the door. Suddenly the movie flashes back to Natalie's last night, and we see Matt open up the door and meet her. Following their embrace and kiss, the scene cuts to them discussing their plans for the future in bed. As they passionately converse with each other, Matt's drunken co-workers pull up to the trailer. Natalie immediately draws the curtain, but one of the men named Pete, who appears to be extremely under the influence, pulls back the curtain and begins teasing the couple by asking them what they've been up to. He then begins to fool around and tries to peek under the covers, which causes Matt to lose his temper, leaping out of the bed and pushing him away. But Pete doesn't seem to be backing off. He jumps on the ladder while saying he wants to be involved in the act. Meanwhile, one of the men racially insults Natalie, causing her to slap him in the face. Pete takes advantage of the situation and takes Natalie's pants off. After Pete takes a few punches from Matt, things get heated up and a fight breaks out between the sides. Natalie tries to help her boyfriend, but they both take severe blows to the head and pass out. Natalie soon wakes up to find herself being raped by Pete. Once Matt comes out of the blackout and notices this, he unleashes on Pete once more. We eventually see everyone beating up Matt and Natalie runs off, knowing she can't do anything for his boyfriend. This was the moment she began desperately running to save herself, which ultimately resulted in her death. In the present, Jane is still pounding on the door while yelling FBI. High on the mountains, Cory notices snowmobile trails leading from the drilling site to where they found Matt, proving that the guards brought Matt's body here after killing him and tried to mislead the investigation by sledding back along a path that led to Sam's place. He immediately tries to alert Ben about the guards. However, before Jane can move away from the door, a loud explosion is heard through it, and a buckshot is fired into her chest. The security guards now open fire on the tribal police officers. A massive shootout takes place between the two sides, but eventually the guards take the upper hand and manage to kill all the officers. Jane has been injured by the impact, but her bulletproof vest has kept her alive. The lead security guard takes her gun away as she tries to load it up. Just as he's about to shoot, an unexpected bullet rips through his body. Cory is the strange shooter who has hidden himself in the snow. As the other guards begin looking for him, he relentlessly shoots them to death. Cory then begins shooting into the trailer and manages to hit another one, but Pete escapes through the window and runs toward the mountains. After giving Jane first aid, Cory heads up the hills to find Pete. Pete hears the sound of a snowmobile engine and frantically looks around to find the source. As soon as he turns around, Cory uses his rifle to knock him unconscious. After waking up, he finds himself barefoot atop a mountain while his toes are already showing signs of frostbite. Cory promises him a second chance if he admits to what they did. Pete confesses to killing Matt and raping Natalie, and Cory keeps his word. He allows Pete to go, remarking that Natalie ran 6 miles barefoot in the snow, and that he wasn't sure he would even make it to 600 feet. Pete starts running after Cory tells him to, but it only takes a few steps for the sub-zero air to burst his lungs, just like it did to Natalie. He collapses to the ground wheezing and dies on the spot. In the next scene, Cory can be seen talking to Jane in the hospital. She feels lucky to have survived, while the latter believes that luck has no place on the reservation. He thinks that here, you either survive because you have the spirit and the strength, or you surrender because you don't. Jane breaks down in tears as she thinks back to Natalie's 6-mile run in such a -0 condition to save her life. Cory then pays Martin a visit, finding him sitting with his newly invented death face, which indicates that he was about to kill himself. In order to make him feel better, Cory describes how each of the men responsible for Natalie's death was executed, particularly the man who sexually assaulted Natalie, who died with a whimper. Martin starts getting emotional, asking his friend to stay for a while and join in his grief. Losing a daughter in such a terrible way has undoubtedly changed their perception of pain. It made one of them consider suicide, while it inspired the other to become stronger. In the end, both symbols of weakness and power are right in front of us, exactly as they are in facing every challenge in our daily lives, and we must choose which one of them we would like to be. Thank you for taking the time to watch the video. Don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, and also let me know what you think about the movie.